Okay, awesome. So thank you for coming. I know this is a training that you selected because you probably have a couple questions on the topic. And of course, we want to give you all the information that we can so you are prepared. Now, we call it peace of mind. It's a training that we call peace of mind because we not only allow ourselves to be prepared and have that peace of mind, but our family members are ready for that event, so they also get that peace of mind of avoiding the unexpected. That most of the times it's very expected. It's the only secure thing we have. So we added some information on the paperwork that we provided, and we're going to cover some things just so you know what kind of things to expect. So if you go to this first sheet, it's the funeral planning informational sheet. It's a two-side, yeah, that one. Should be like in the middle. That one right there. Okay, so it's very important. If you have an accident or if you have an inconvenient illness, let's say cancer, you got a metastasis and you pass away really quick, you have to answer all these questions. Well, your family members have to answer all these questions to any funeral home you go to, okay? So it's very important that you're prepared. When we go to a funeral home, they'll tell you, well, what's the name of your loved one's mother or father, etc., etc. So if you notice, if you go to the first questions, let me grab one because this one's in Spanish. You all have English paperwork, right? Okay, good. So if you notice, this one says place of birth. Whose place of birth? The deceased place of birth. The father's birthplace, the mother's maiden name, the mother's birthplace, full legal name, home address and phone number, how long in the state of, for example, here, Texas, occupation title, the type of the business the person had, a business address and phone number. So all these vital questions are asked at the moment of the loved one's death, okay? And unfortunately, most of us are not prepared during that time, and when the time arrives, it's very inconvenient. Very, very inconvenient. So if you notice, funeral arrangements decide if it's a traditional burial or a cremation, or if they're donating to science, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If the person's a Jew, if the person's a Catholic, if the person's a Christian, person's an agnostic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all the details that you have to know and understand before the whole process is done. Now, other decisions and arrangements. Now, do you want a priest? Do you want a pastor? Do you want a rabbi? Et cetera, et cetera. The different options that we have in the religion. Well, person wasn't that religious. Well, who can come, or do they just want someone to speak in the front, et cetera, et cetera. So little details like those. And these are just like the simple questions. Now, who do you need to notify? You need to notify banks. You need to notify insurances. You need to notify life insurances. You need to notify everything that the person dealt with. Social Security Administration. You have to call, for example, if you had a pending debt, have to call the companies where the debt took place, et cetera, et cetera. So all that information. Now, future plans. Did the person have a prepared plan? Did the person have a funeral plan? Did the person already have a plot? Have they bought a cemetery? How much they owe? How much they still have? Do they have an insured plan? Et cetera, et cetera. So it's basic questions. And this paperwork that we're providing, it's information that you will definitely need at the time. So why do I start with this? Most of us plan for the quinceañera, the wedding, to purchase a house, to purchase a vehicle. So we always plan for everything. And most of the things that we plan are things that may not happen. The only event that happens, regardless, is death. It's the only event that indefinitely will happen. So we help families understand the need of being prepared to have that peace of mind. Okay, so it's very important for us to be able to give you the tools to understand how this works. Now, raise your hand. Do all of you have a will, a testamentary will? Who does? No one. Okay. First step. Testament and will. How does that work? Well, you can either do it yourself, or you can go to a lawyer, or you can go to a notary public, whatever you prefer. Lawyers are a bit more expensive. Notary publics are okay. You can do it yourself for free. How? Well, you have to check everything that you have. House, vehicles, bank accounts, jewelry, if you have collectibles, whatever, everything you have. And you're going to put it on a list. When I pass away, Javier Valenzuela, will give the house to my daughter, my son, so, et cetera, et cetera. So everything that you have, all the estates that you have, everything that you've accumulated with the years, also the money, you can give it to someone particularly, okay? So the will and testament will help you delegate responsibilities, delegate needs in general for your family, and will also give to your family members whatever you left to them, okay? I've seen it all. I've seen collectibles. I had an elder lady who collected caps, little caps of sodas, cans, all kinds of caps. I don't know for what, but she collected them. And so she gave that to one of her nieces. I'm like, okay, well, for what? But that's another story. So anything you can actually give to your loved ones. So that's one thing, the will and testament. So how can you do it for free? You will write it down, okay? Put it on a piece of paper, seal it on an envelope, send it first class mail to yourself. And do not open this envelope until I pass away. That's your testament. And it's free. And it's notarized by the post office because it's marked as an official document. So that's the way to do it for free, okay? Now, if you don't want to do it for free and you want to do something better, you can go to a notary public or a lawyer and they will upload it into the county's webpage. You can also do that yourself. You can create your own will and go to the county and upload it into the county. It costs about $35, $45, okay? So if notary public charges you about $500, they're practically asking for a little bit more than enough. So $35 to $45 is what it costs to upload the document into the city. And it will be stamped by Ms. Briones' department, and you will for sure have that until you pass away or until you change it. So it's up to you. It's up to you. Now, every time you purchase a new facility, now you have a bigger account, now you have a different account, et cetera, you have to update your will and testament. I'm sorry. That's very important. So, step one. Now, raise your hand. Who has a funeral plan in place? 1, 2. Okay. What is very weird, 1 of every 7 people has a funeral plan established. The rest don't. And they pay fees at the moment, at the need, that are a lot more than what you would have paid if you were pre-planning. And we will explain a little bit more on that. So that's another step, okay? Funeral planning. Now, that's just the funeral planning. Who has cemetery plots or a niche, for example? You have, what do you have? cremate.
Four plots. And
4 plots.
northeast.
Great.
Bought
So-
them in the 80s.
Great. When did you buy it, if I may ask?
Like 1986?
A long time ago. So you got it like around $2,000, $3,000.
Like, yeah, like 6,000 for 4 plots.
Yeah. That's a great price. A great price. You should see today's prices, and we'll talk about it later.
Like 8,000 each now.
Exactly. Exactly. Restlawn, I believe Restlawn is the one you're at, right?
Alps on Dyer.
Yes. Restlawn right now,
To the houses.
a single plot is just $7,000.
7.
$7,000. Just a single plot.
Yeah, 4.
Now you can imagine if you multiply that by 4. So it's a great example of if you prepare yourself with time, you will save a lot of money when time passes. So that's another thing. So will testament, funeral plan, and cemetery plan. Okay, cemetery plan. So what kind of plan do you have? What kind of plans do you need? Have you thought about your family? Now, some people have said to us when we do a presentation to a family, well, my son and my daughter will take care of it. Sure. Does your son or daughter have children? Yeah, they do. Don't you believe that perhaps your son and daughter have to pay for whatever they need to pay for their children, plus their house, plus their other expenses in general? And most of them tend to say, yeah. Then would you leave a big toll to your family member just because you said they were going to plan or not? Oh yeah. Then why not plan ahead? So it's very important. So those 3 things are very important. When death arrives, you never know when it will happen. You never know. Just back in I think it was November, December, this little girl right there on Thorn in West El Paso, were just sitting out to school, and a young girl was driving her car. She did not see the little girl hit her and kill the little girl, a 5-year-old girl. So death does not have age limits. It could happen in the womb. It could happen when you're 80, 90. I talked to a client last week, 98 years old, and they had paid their plan 40 years before. So you never know. You never know. And it's better to be prepared than sorry. Okay? So let us ask a couple questions, and my partner Jessica will help you with that.
So we want you to reflect and write down your answers on the sheet of paper that we provided for you.
Who needs a pen or pencil?
So the first question we want you to reflect on is, if you were to pass away today, who would make your funeral arrangements?
And with who? We ask family members, we ask friends, we ask if perhaps a company. Who?
Okay. Our second question is, does that person or do they know your final wishes? Do you want to be cremation? Do you want a burial? What type of burial? What type of cremation? All those things. Do they know what you want?
If you need extra sheets, let me know. Okay? Just raise your hand.
So my third question for you is, do you know the average cost of a funeral service today?
We write it down, or?
Write it down. So the average cost today is around $7,000 to $10,000 for a plan today, and these costs almost double every 5 years. So let's do some math. So the average cost of a burial today is around $8,000. That's the cost for today. In 5 years, the cost is $14,000.
If you check the inflation rate, right now we have an inflation rate of 1.75%. So you make the calculation of 8,000. Within 5 years, it will be 1 times 1.75. That's where you'll get that rate. So it will continue growing.
So, does the person that that is making your funeral arrangements, how are they going to pay for these expenses? Will they take out a loan? Will they ask around for people to collect money from them? Will they make a GoFundMe page? Stuff like that. This is important because we don't want them to struggle at the time with the financial pressure. Now, what would you regret the most? The financial pressure and stress you're leaving for your loved ones? The conflicts that may arise among family members. We've met many family members that the sons can't decide what the mom wanted. Like, did she want burial? Did she want cremation? Many times people end up fighting at the end of these moments, even though it's a hard moment. They're all struggling, but they still fight about it. Or the fact that you have not prepared with anticipation. Didn't leave all these documents ready for your family members, for your loved ones.
Right now we we were chatting, and they were telling us that they had already prepared the plan a long time ago, but they can't remember where the paperwork is. That can happen too. So whoever's in charge or whoever will take care of the situation, do they know where the paperwork is? Do you have a safe? Where do you keep them? Do you keep them under the mattress? So it's a great question to know. Very good. So knowing these questions and understanding how it works, do you believe it's something that you need to do? It's something we have to plan. It's something we have to plan. Now, we do advise that you check different places so you can understand how it works, okay? Now, this is a training. We're not, even though we work for, I work for 4 different companies doing this, okay? But I'm still able to give you information specifically for different things. For example, cemeteries, columbariums, La Paz, Perches. So we can help you with different ones. Okay, and that's the good thing, that you're able to get information that is fresh from different places. Now, if you get an example of services in Mount Carmel Cemetery, just to give you a brief, Mount Carmel Cemetery right now, for a single plot, we're talking about a single plot is $1,450. Just a single plot. Okay? Alright, let's say you want it for your spouse. It would be $1,950 for double. Okay? That's Mount Carmel. Now, let's talk about Evergreen. You said Evergreen, your Restlawn. Restlawn. So, for example, with Restlawn, right now, and they're at let me get the specific facts. So the cheapest garden, because they have different gardens, and they have different gardens at different places, but the cheapest garden right now is for a single plot. We're talking about $5,920 for just a single plot. This is with Restlawn. Yes.
I have a question.
It might be a dumb question.
No,
but,
it's not.
So it's the single plot, but I know, or I've heard that you could bury like, you know, yourself and then like your husband on, like, I guess if you go first or something.
Correct.
Is that what that means? Like single is like no one else can like go in the same thing, or it's just one little spot and then another spot, or?
That's a great question, and it's not a dumb question whatsoever. When you buy a single plot, this is with any cemetery, you can buy a single plot. They will allow you to have one person only. But let's say your spouse passes away before you, and the person did not have the plot. You can donate that plot to your husband. And when you want to plan for yourself, they just add an amount, and it's usually between $500 to $700. Depends on the cemetery. So, for example, with Mount Carmel, they're at $550 for an additional plot within the same. Well, an additional space within the same plot. Sorry. With them, it's $750 with Restlawn. And this is Restlawn, Evergreen, all the different dignity memorials. So this is, like I said, you can see the different prices. Why is this place so cheap, if we could call it cheap? First, this is a private, Evergreen Dignity Memorials is a private company. So it's a big company nationwide, and they, of course, manage their own prices and globally. Mount Carmel, the owner of Mount Carmel is the Diocese of El Paso. So they do not charge interest. They do not charge specific things like the other companies do, because it's not a private cemetery. It's actually more a public cemetery, and that's why it's very inexpensive. So depending on what you get, it depends on what you want. Let's say you say, yes, because I love Evergreen. Every time I go by Montana, I see the green pastures, and I want to be buried there. Well, depending on what you want is what you plan for, okay? So right now, you make a calculation. If you want to pass away within a year, you can expect these prices. But let's say you pass away within 30, 45 years, you make a calculation. How much do I have to plan to save if I don't want to plan ahead? Okay, if I don't want to plan ahead, if you want to plan ahead, you freeze most of the prices in funeral homes. Now, funeral home services could vary in prices as well, okay? For example, right now, the two least expensive funeral homes is San Jose and Perches Funeral Homes, okay? You probably saw the P, it's one of our major clients. I also work with San Jose. So, for example, Perches Funeral Homes and San Jose vary in prices depending on a cremation. So let's say a regular cremation. Or let me ask, raise your hand who wants a burial instead of a cremation. Burial, okay. And the rest of you cremation. Okay, I'll do both. So for example, a burial and a cremation, which is I forgot to mention this. Did you know you have 3 options of disposition of your body? You have 3 options. It's either burial, cremation, or donation to science. Okay? I forgot to mention that earlier. I don't know why. But you have the cremation and burial, you know how it works. Burial, they put the whole body in a casket and they bury it underground. Or they can put it in a crypt, which is upper ground. Okay? A cremation, it's the process of taking the body to a crematorium. Basically, they put in the body into more than 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, so it disintegrates like that. Within 5 minutes, it disintegrates. And the ashes is just the bones, basically. It's your bones. So that's the cremation. And the donation to science, it's free. It's free with certain specificities that the university you're donating to asks for. Okay? How does that work? Well, let's say you want to provide your body, and depending on the faith you have, because some faiths do not allow that, but depending on the faith you have, let's say you're agnostic, that wouldn't be an inconvenience. So you donate your body to science, the university will give you a form, and that form you will specify, well, do you have disease of this? Do you have diabetes? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have this, and this? Because they want to investigate not on healthy bodies. They want to investigate on non-healthy bodies, because that's how they improve medicine. That's how they improve science, to identify how to cure diseases in general. So if you have a healthy body, it probably won't work much for them. And they'll probably keep you in the morgue for a long time. Perhaps only for investigation on anatomy of the body, basically. But not to investigate on the science itself. So think of it. Let's say if you go to Texas Tech. I want to donate my body to Texas Tech. Well, Texas Tech will tell you, we're currently investigating on this. Do you have this, and this? No. Well, try later. Okay? So it varies depending on the university. It varies depending on the place you go to. They will ask you to fill out a questionnaire, and that questionnaire will let them understand how's the status of your body, in other words, or what they can do for you. Okay? They won't charge you a single dime. They will tell you, yes, basically what's going to happen is we're going to use whatever we need to use from your body and cremate the remains. Basically. So, in reality, donating to science at the end is a cremation process. Okay? So that's to explain the three of them. So, a cremation can vary in price from $1,000 up to, I've seen as expensive as $7,000. Just the cremation process. Okay, just the cremation process. The burial can go as low as $2,000 to as high as $15,000. I'll just put 15K. Why 15K? Because that's the maximum an agent can sell. An agent cannot sell above $15,000. So if you ever get an agent that tells you, oh yeah, no, your burial costs $16,000. Now you know that it's a lie, because they cannot, by law, by Texas law, sell you above $15,000. Okay? So you can see the big differences in prices. Okay? Cremation is the least expensive. Burial is the most expensive. And why can it become this expensive? Let's say you want a crypt. You know the differences on between burial types? Okay, let me explain myself. For cremation, you will need either a cremain burial or a columbarium, basically stating that it's a niche, or a natural disposition. So a cremation, you can either bury the cremains, okay, you can bury the cremains, and you can do that with the urn in a plot. Let's say right now our partner asked, well, what if I only buy a single plot and then later on I need another one? Well, the plots have that capability of not only including the hearse, the casket, but also to include up to 2 urns. So an urn, and these are probably very technical words, I hope you've heard of them, but a columbarium, okay, it's a building or a set of built spaces where you can deposit your urn. The urn is where you deposit the ashes. So it's the little box or the little urn that you deposit the ashes. Now, the columbariums have different niches. What's a niche? Well, a niche is the little space, the box, where you deposit the remains. Okay? What's a natural disposition? You want to scatter the ashes in the sea. You want to put it under a tree. So those are natural dispositions where you don't necessarily have to do much. You just disperse the ashes. So you have different options. Okay? That's on a cremation. Now, on a burial, you only have a underground burial. You have a crypt, which is a mausoleum. And or the common burial. Underground burial is the most common, where they open the floor, the land, and they deposit the casket. That's the most common. The mausoleum, it's a building where they structure specific spaces, like this big, where they deposit the complete casket with the body. Okay? And that little space is called the crypt. Okay? Crypt could be placed either on a mausoleum, on the wall, mounted on the wall, or they can be above ground. Okay? So you've probably seen the movie Dracula, where he comes out from, or the Mummy, where the mummy comes out from. That's a mausoleum. That's actually a crypt. Okay? And a common burial, where everyone goes if they don't have money. Okay? So you have those two options, and basically a common burial is now the city has decided, and this happens with different states too, decided to cremate the remains of the body. It's a lot cheaper than doing a common burial. That doesn't happen often now. I haven't seen it very often. So, but those are different options that you get.
I have
You have a question? Yes.
Let's say you purchase a single plot,
Yes.
and you said you can donate it to someone, right? And then when I plant, I can be buried on that same plot. If it's a single, do they go the same length underground, or how do they take it out and then they put
Yes.
lower?
Basically, what you can do when they sell you a single plot with the capability of doing a double plot, they will sell you the double plot and ask you to pay as you go. Okay? Why? Because if it's a single plot, they cannot reopen because it's called inhume of the body, and they can't do that. It's against the law. Okay, so basically what happens is they, if they are going to sell you a single plot where you can only put one casket, it would be just a single one. They won't be able to do much. But let's say you have your significant other, okay, or a friend, or your mom, dad, whatever, and you bought a double space, or for example hers, that she bought 4. Yeah, they'll open the very first one, they'll bury the very first one, okay, and then second person, right above it, third person, right above it, and you won't pay it until you need it. So for example, if you freeze the prices and you pay for the land before time, it will be great because you won't have to worry about it. But let's say it happens before you expected it, you would have to pay the fee of opening, closing the land, and of course having to do the whole service itself. Yeah, so it does vary depending on what you buy. So when you go to the cemetery and you tell them, yes, it's because I have the possibility of burying 3 people, then they'll sell you a 4 plot. Okay. If no, I only have a person extra from me that may need the help, then they'll sell you a double plot. I have no one else but myself, they'll sell you a single plot. Okay. But make sure that you know that, because salesmen will try to sell you. Okay? They will try to sell you. You only need one, but look, perhaps you have a friend that may need it, that's poor. Buy the second one. So you buy what you need. Okay? And perhaps think of further in future, what could change in your life. Okay? For example, my parents, when they bought their plan, they bought a niche for my dad, my mom. My mom hasn't passed away yet. My dad already did. And my grandma. So they're able to put 3 persons in one niche. So it depends. Depends on what you want. And it's up to your specific needs. Now, I mentioned prices. Prices change based on the person's needs. Okay? So let's say when you do a funeral plan, I don't want flowers. I don't want the Bible. I don't want this, and that. They will remove that from the plan, and you won't have to pay for that. It will become less expensive. Okay? So let's say you have just a brief. Let's say you have a $5,000 plan or packet that they're trying to sell you. You know what? I don't want the flowers. Most flowers places, they will charge about $100. So the funeral home will charge you about $150 to $200. You can see the huge difference there. So let's say you tell them, you know what? I don't want the flowers. I'll have my family handle it, or I'll pay it elsewhere. And here you already rested $4,150, for example. So it's less. You know what? I don't want the priest to go to the funeral home. We can do a mass later. Or I don't want the pastor to go to the funeral home. We can do that later. That can also be done. So there you're removing about $200 minus 200, etc., etc., etc. Okay? Or you know what? I want mariachi. I want a band to play, well, or whatever, because we've had it. We've had. That's $5,000. Then you would have to add. It's usually about $200. So there it's $5,200. Just to give you a brief, okay, an example of how the prices can range depending on what you want. I don't want a regular bureau. I want a beautiful crypt where I can, when my family can walk in and say, "Oh, this is where my grandma was buried." Well, crypts vary in price. They're between $10,000 to $12,000. So you can see how it can vary. It varies a lot, depending on what you get. But when you're with your agent, you have to make sure that you tell them, you know what, I want this. No, but no, I want this. If they upsell you, it's because you decided to upsell. Okay, I'm sorry, not upsell. So it's up to you. It's up to you. And that's the neat thing of it. Okay, and it would be the same thing with the wills and testaments. Okay, companies will try to upsell. You know what? We just did the will, but you probably need someone to decide about your health. Let's say you get a disease and you can't decide for yourself. Who would you leave that burden to? Oh, this person. Good. So now we have to create another document. It's an addendum. You see? So depending on what you want, that's why it's very important that you're informed of everything we're doing right now, so you're prepared. So when the event happens, you know what to expect of the unexpected. Okay? Now, so we talked about the cemetery, we talked about the burial, we talked about the wills, testaments. What if, and this is a good if, or let me ask a question. Who travels from here constantly, or at least once a year? 1, 2, 3. Okay. For those of you that travel, I included this sheet of paper. That's for you too. This is from another company that we can help you with. It's called Travel Plan from Inman. As you can see, we work for different companies. We help. But check the prices. So let's say you're in Las Vegas. Okay, that's right in the middle where it says Arizona to Northwest or Central America. You can see the prices there. So if you notice, if you're like in Las Vegas and they need to transfer you over here, the cost of the price itself of just transporting your body to where you live, it's approximately from $1,500 to $2,500. Let's say you go to Europe. You want to go to France, see the Tower of Eiffel. Well, if you go to France, you can see here Europe, $8,500 just to transport the body here. Okay. Now with the violence, let's say you go to Asia, Middle East, just to go to Holy Land. Okay, we're talking about $10,000 to $14,000 just to transport the body here. Now, what's the solution that we have for this? There's what we call the Travel Plan by Inman. It's another service that is provided to everyone, that with a single payment of $450, they will cover completely everything. They'll bring you from where you're at and bring you to your hometown without having to spend on a monthly basis like other places. So this particular plan, and that's just for you to know, if you pay only a small amount of $450, you will avoid this high costs. Okay? And they're very high. They're very high. Who of you are aware of the singer Juan Gabriel? Did you hear of him? Well, when he passed away in California, Perches actually brought the body from California to Juarez. That specific trip from there to here, we're talking about $2,000 to $3,000 just the transportation itself. Now, I know as a fact that Alberto Aguilera was his real name, not Juan Gabriel. Alberto Aguilera had purchased a plan with Mr. Purchase back then, a long time ago, and he had a plan already set in place. So you could see that it happens with everyone. Now, have you heard of Jose Jose, another artist, Mexican artist, singer? Well, he passed away in Florida. They wanted to send the cremains to Mexico, but this guy did not have a will, did not have a plan. So what happened to him? All the children, well, his son and two daughters, I believe, were constantly fighting because they couldn't decide. They couldn't say. It was a big drama. It was in the news for about 2-3 weeks. It was a huge drama. Why? Because he didn't prepare himself. And he had the money. That's even worse. He had the money, but he didn't prepare himself. So you can see two different options, two different examples, of two famous people of just recently that I followed and that I know of how it happened. So if you travel a lot, that's another option, okay? So check those options. What's the best option for you? Do I go constantly to California? Or do I go to, let's say, Houston? Or do I go to Holy Land, for example? You can see what to expect, okay? Now, that's on that side. Now, we added this little paper here that says, consider these advantages. So when you buy a plan from a funeral home, you will definitely freeze the prices of the plan. So what Jessica helped us understand earlier, if it's 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, that's the amount that you would pay and you won't have to pay more. So let's say right now you plan your funeral and your funeral plan is $7,000, and you make a pre-plan. Some companies, for example, Purchase uses Security National, which is one of the options that you see there. Some other companies like Dignity Memorials use SCI, South, forgot the middle C, International, which is another insurance. So basically what they do is you buy the plan, okay, and God forbid something happens before you finish paying, the insurance pays for it. And the family won't have to worry about having to pay it. So that's another great benefit, okay? If you buy a plan, make sure you buy an insured plan, because you will be paying on a monthly basis. It will be a lot easier for you, but it would be very simple to, if something happens, the insurance covers everything, you won't have to worry about it. So it's very simple, very, very simple. What else? What else am I missing? Well, so we freeze the prices, and of course, you leave that peace of mind to your family members. Now, once you plan, I suggest the following, and I tell this to all my clients. The packet that you receive, okay, seal it in a plastic bag, or let me show you something I do. This is a contract. I seal it. Seal it in a little bag like this, like a Ziploc or whatever, and put it in a safe. If you can buy a safe, or if you know of a place where you can put it, because you want to make sure that the paperwork is legible when the situation arises. Last time I saw, it was actually last week, I was talking to a client who had a couple of questions on his policy. Someone else helped them with the policy, but he approached me to ask several questions. And so I checked the policy. The policy was just 1 year old, and the papers were already yellow. 1 year old. So take care of those papers, because those are important papers. Now let's say you misplace them. Most of the companies will have a copy of the plan you have. Okay, so whoever you decided to go with, they will have a copy of everything you have, or that you misplaced. Okay, so that's another option. But you want to keep that in a safe area, in a safe place, to avoid that it gets misplaced.
And to what Javier was saying, always keep it updated. If you change your address, if you change your phone number, if you want to change beneficiary, you have to keep all of those documents updated all the time, just so that you can always be prepared and leave everything ready.
Jessica actually brings an excellent point. I had a client that called me and, Javier, my beneficiary just passed away. What do I do? Well, basically, you have to call the place where you did the plan. Okay, you call the place where you did the plan. They're gonna send you a form of amendment to assign a new beneficiary to your plan. Simple. It shouldn't cost. If you go to a lawyer, if you go to another public, they'll charge you. You can do it yourself. You don't have to spend money on that. Okay. So what do you think? Do you have any questions? Additional questions? It's going over, 48 minutes. It's good timing. No. No other questions?
So I had this plan in it, and it worked out good. I made payments every month, and a while back.
Great. You
For
finished paying?
services.
Great. What did you get? You got a burial plan. Good.
The flowers, cheaper than, 35.
Great. Great. That's an awesome price.
I have my packet and everything like that.
Great.
You never know.
You never know. You never know. Yes.
So let's say I purchased my plan here in El Paso,
Mm-hmm.
and then I end up getting an excellent job in Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm there for until I die. And I haven't been to El Paso in 30 years. So we would have to get, I guess, transported to El Paso since we bought this plot, or try to sell it here or something, or can you sell something that you bought to someone else? How does that work?
Those are excellent questions, and I'm glad you brought them up. Got an excellent job elsewhere. She goes to different place. Now, if you purchase a plan, make sure you purchase an insured plan. Why? Because you're not paying the funeral home. You're paying the insurance company. So if the insurance company, let's say you go to China, you pass away in China, the insurance company will send a check of the plan you took. Now, the only thing is that the funeral home where you're at may grant the price for the service or may say, no, you need to pay more. That would be the only setback. But the plan that you have would actually cover most of the service that you have. Now, getting it with an insured company will actually help you a lot because let's say you, like she says, you move elsewhere, you cannot sell the plan to someone. Not in the US. You can do it in Mexico, not in the US. You cannot transfer the service to someone else. But what you can do is, since you pay to the insurance, that's like money that you've accumulated for that event. And so whatever happens, the insurance will send a check to wherever you're at. So that's why it's a great benefit to buy the plan with an insured plan instead of directly with the funeral home. Okay?
Question.
Yes.
So let's say you are in China and you pass away over there, and the funeral home says no, it's not enough. You have to pay.
Mhm.
Who would have to pay for that? My loved ones or the insurance, since it was in under insurance?
It would have to be your loved ones, because the prices that you buy on a specific plan are frozen prices. Okay, so let's say you find what you can do is match the service at the place you're at for whatever you paid for. Okay, now some insurances, not all, but I know, for example, Security National Life does a good job. If you die in an accident, they will not only cover the expenses of the funeral, but they will also send a check for the same amount to your loved ones to cover other expenses. It depends. Depends a lot on what you on the plan that you get.
So they would give you the money that you've paid so far. You just have to pay the difference.
Exactly. Or get a service that matches that same amount or less. If it's something that matches to less of that, it will actually give more money to your loved ones. So let's say, for any reasons, you buy a plan of $8,000, but the place you go, the plan costs $5,000. Those other $3,000 will be given to your family members. They will not be misused, in other words. Great question. Another question? No? Very good. Now, yes?
If we wanted to purchase something, like, do we just contact the funeral home directly, or how can we start?
There's 3 things you can do. You can either call the funeral home, and they will direct you with someone that does the pre-need service. That's with any funeral home. Okay? 2, you can contact directly one of the agents, any agent. In El Paso, just with Perches, there's more than 48 agents. More than 48. With San Jose, I know there's more than 10 agents. With Dignity Memorials, they have more than 80 agents. So, it's up to you.
Oh.
But, the third option is us. Okay?
I just called and made an appointment, and then I went in there,
Yes,
because you want to pick your casket, you know?
exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and the great benefit, for example, with most agents, and for example, that's something we do. We take the information with us. Let me show you. So, for example, what kind of casket do you want? Okay, a columbarium. So we cover that. We don't necessarily have to go to the funeral home to show that specifically. Yes.
So what if you pick a casket,
Mhm.
and then like 40 years later you die, and they don't have that make and model anymore?
That's an excellent question. So whatever you purchase, the casket, the specific things of the casket, they will try to match something that's very similar,
Okay.
or not only in price but in looks.
Okay.
Okay, so let's say you bought a pink casket, and you want your casket to be pink. They can match that. Now, if it's a bit more expensive than what it was, they would just ask to pay the difference. If not, they would just match something that matches the price that you paid for. Mhm. Great questions. More questions? Any other questions? No?
With urns, you can buy them yourself and then keep them at your home until you need them.
That's another good thing.
And
Well,
then when you need to,
did you know?
My friend kept his mom's ashes. He has them at home under a shelf. And then his nephew passed away, same thing, on the urn.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he kept them
Yeah.
inside the house.
Now, did you know that Walmart is the largest retail company that sells caskets in the world?
I didn't know that.
Walmart. And it's kind of weird, right? Walmart and Amazon are one of the largest retailers in the world that sell caskets and urns. It's something that you probably don't Google, that probably don't know of. But yeah,
In your garage.
you can actually buy your casket before. You can keep it in your
Garage.
in your garage. Yeah. Or your pot storage. Or Panda self-storage. Yeah. You can buy anything. The urn, you can buy the casket, anything you can buy before and keep it there. Now the inconvenience is that it takes a lot of space. So, but it's up to you, whatever you want to do there. But yeah, you can buy anything elsewhere.
So you can buy like your own urn, and then when they get cremated, you can like give it
Take
to
it.
them and tell them. Yeah, because I know my cousin paid a lot for like the urn at the funeral home.
Yes. Some urns vary in price. Now, for example, last time I talked to Dignity Memorials, one of their urns costed $500. Just one little urn. Little urn. With bed sheets, they just recently changed the price. They charge $195. San Jose, $150. So you can buy the urn. Now they have different options. You don't necessarily have to buy the urn they give you. The contract that you do with any funeral home will include the price of the urn. So you cannot remove it, in other words, unless you have an urn with you. So let's say you do not remove it and you already have your urn. What's going to happen is that money that is not used because you already have the urn will be given to your family member. Okay? And that depends a lot on the company. So make sure that you read the contract. Why? With Security National, I know they do not assign you mandatory the urn they give you. They will give the check if you need the money. Okay, if you need the urn, I'm sorry, they will give you the $195 back. But let's say I've had clients that tell me, no, I had bought my urn, but the funeral home said that I couldn't change it. They gave me theirs and they charged me theirs, and so I just transferred the remains to my new urn. It happens. So that's why you have to be very specific and check those details on the contract. Okay? Any other questions?
Those companies, those funeral homes, they each work with like like this one, the Security National, or you just have to look for one that does work or offer you an insured.
Every company, every funeral home has their own
Okay.
insurance. Why? There's 3 institutions that control the monopoly of the funeral homes. What are these? the Texas Department of Banking here in Texas, the Texas Department of Insurance, and the the Federal Funeral Association, I believe is. Okay, so these all control the processes. Okay, and one good thing that they did was that every funeral home must have an insurance, so if the person passes away elsewhere, they can get the benefit where they're at, not the funeral home. Because buying to the funeral home, if for any reason the funeral home goes to bankrupt, the money will be lost completely, and you won't be able to have a plan. And that has happened in the past. That's why the Texas Department of Banking and the Texas Department of Insurance decided to do that to avoid causing a problem to the clients. Yes. Another question? A lot of good questions. That's good.
Well, in your packets, I believe we gave you this sheet. If you could please let us evaluate us, that would be really helpful for us. And if you know anyone that might find this information helpful, that they might want to know, if you could put it down in the recommendations.
Okay. We appreciate your time. Thank you for coming. You have our business cards, Jessica's and mine. We'll be more than glad to help you out if you decide. We will follow up with you if you like us to follow up. If we do if we check the information with you, it takes us about 15 minutes to give you a price. So it doesn't take that long. Okay? So we can go to your place, we can go to your house, we can meet anywhere you want. And the benefit is that we work Monday to Sunday. So that wouldn't be an inconvenience for us. So any other questions?